Hello and welcome to Upstage Downstage.
With me, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And me, Stephen Rees, seated in a cheap seat. This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen, things we've liked and may not have liked, giving our complete unprofessional and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew, take a seat and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the first of our pantomime specials, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We saw this production at Nottingham Theatre Royal on the 6th of January 2023, with a stellar cast featuring much-loved and top-selling comedian Joe Pasquale as Muddles, step singer Faye Tozer as the Wicked Queen, David Robbins as the Dame, Jamal Cain Crawford as the Prince, Lucy Island as Snow White, and Natalia Brown plays the spirit of pantomime. So Stephen, what's it all about?
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs will be spectacularly brought to life with an abundance of comedy, sensational song and dance numbers, fabulous costumes and stunning scenery. Throw in a magical mirror, 7 friendly dwarfs, a beautiful princess, a handsome prince, and plenty of audience participation. And you have the perfect recipe to outwit the Wicked Queen and let love prevail in this glittering festive treat for all ages.
But first, our post-show opinion!
Mirror, mirror on the wall, was this the poorest panto of them all? Yes.
You know what? I think I should have bit that poison apple. So with all that said, let's
set the scene. So Richard, shall we go into it? Would you like to set the scene? If you remember.
Yeah, so when you walked into Nottingham Theatre Royal, which we've become I'd say we're quite familiar with the setup of the auditorium now. It's very Victorian in its style. And what you were presented with was a view of... God, that's horrendous.
God, a view of God?
A view of God?
A view of God. He was on stage. He was in the mirror.
What the paper? We're writing a panto already. Okay, so what you walked into was a star curtain surrounded the whole of the stage area.
A what?
Star curtain.
Oh, a star curtain.
Yeah, so a star curtain, which is basically... It's not really a technical thing, but it's actually just a big black cloth with little LEDs lights put into it, so it all looks like stars, and that's how they sort of set the whole scene of the theatre stage. And you had almost a frame of just very ornate, I'd say, classic fairy tale, like edging of a border of a nice story. So it was like the stuff they'd use in a storybook. So and it was almost the front of a storybook in the middle, which just literally had Snow White projected onto the front just to enhance the wording, really. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. Yeah, and it was all lit with coloured lights, so it looked different to when we've been in there before. So the actual auditorium itself had gobo lights everywhere just to make it feel different to what we've seen before.
And that was all right. That was okay.
Yeah, it was good.
It was building us up little by little.
It was what you expected from a panto, to have it's almost the front of the book before it opens. And it's like that's the whole point of a panto. You're telling a classic story to feel story, and that's what you expect, really.
Yeah.
I suppose we've talked about a lot of productions in the past referencing the pantomime stage in a way, because like Book of Mormon, for example, the way it's actually set, and I think Stephen saw it as well. When you've seen Book of Mormon and then you watch this, you can see that it's very
built up in layers.
The actual production's built up in layers with front tabs that actually block out the entire stage, but they're actually a travelling scene, or you're moving across into a wood, or it's just it. Yes, it's actually to give them a time to actually change the set behind, but there's always something happening on a smaller part of the stage or a full stage, or it's always the way they generally do a production like this. It's very traditional in its sense of theatre, really.
Yeah, and I suppose what we would normally do is talk about the directing and the writing, but I feel with this one we might have to talk more about the characters, because it's difficult to go on to the directing
unless we've talked about the characters.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's
a different way around in this one, I'm thinking.
It is, yeah.
Or the writing of it. So the scene was set, and then in came all the 7 dwarfs singing "Hi-ho." Hi-ho, it's off the word that we go, or whatever. Hi-ho.
It was very Disney cliche.
Yeah, and then a mirror came up from the stage, and it spun around. And actually there was some pyrotechnics sparked off because it made everyone jump. Do you remember?
Yes, it did.
That's right. And then they just did a little backstory of what's happened with the evil witch.
Yeah, I suppose this is where we could talk about the entrance of the mirror, really, because when you walked in, you didn't really notice that at the front of the stage there was actually a hidden chamber, but like a box thing built into the musician's pit.
Yeah.
That basically it was a framed mirror that was on a hydraulic arm that came out of the smoke machine and things like that to make it look almost like it was floating in midair. So it came out of the front, but it was actually, I'm not giving, this doesn't give anything away, it was a very big TV with a frame around it, so it showed a video while the cast were behind it to tell the story of Snow White.
Yeah, it's once upon a time, basically. And then we cut after that to the Royal Palace grounds, and then we're introduced to Snow White, aren't we? After watching it, I don't know about you, but I just feel that it never sort of matched the story of Snow White much.
No, I mean, they had the elements of the cliched parts of the production were all the elements of the Snow White story. However, I want to say it felt a little rushed and almost a little empty with the story.
I think it also comes down to the characters. I think the characters were also like underwritten and underused.
Yeah,
because
that's
it's very
rare.
rare.
Exactly.
Not very rare. It's we never got to see much interaction with the Seven Dwarfs, and we never seemed to understand much of each core role.
Yeah, and I think that sort of said quite a lot for the actual production as a whole. There was a lot of times where you felt cast members appeared on stage in the costumes as the characters. At the right time, maybe, but there wasn't much interaction. There wasn't much dialogue. It was almost like, we've done that scene, move on to the next. I think what happened as well with the writing, they'd played with the story, but it hadn't improved it. It had confused it, I think. That's the thing.
Yeah, like there wasn't really a plot that... I mean, it's weird because sometimes you can like switch off from the plot because it's a panto.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You still need like a narrative or why they're doing things and where they're going. And half the time throughout this production, I felt like, what's the whole point again? What's going on?
Yeah,
Do
and
you know
I think
what I mean?
I think also the Snow White story is a very loose story. It's not very strong in its storytelling style. There's not a lot in it as one story.
See,
but for me, you've got to then flesh it out and create something to make it a stronger story. I just think the storytelling wasn't there. There was wasted opportunities, I think.
I get a bit confused between Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. I mean, I love
Yes,
Sleeping
they're
Beauty,
very
but it's the whole you have to kiss the girl to wake her up.
At the end of the day, in premise, they're very similar in story plot lines.
Yeah.
Everything, the prick of the finger is the same as the poisoned apple. It's
And the witch is in the wood, it's like dwarves in the wood or whatever.
Yeah, it's all very similar. It's very linear. There's not a lot of dark and light and shade in this. There's, it's almost mild threat rather than...
Yeah, I mean, it's not Chekhov, is it? I mean, it's just a panto, but still, you need a plot.
Yeah, you do.
To follow.
It's almost, but also, I think is you need a commitment to tell that story as much and as big and good and as bright and dreamy as you can do, because at the end of the day, you're telling a basic story. But like most children's stories, they don't always have a big plot, and the children love it because it's a classic story that they've heard before or they've seen, and you've got chance with that to then have fun in all the pockets that there isn't a story. You've got time to play with the characters a little bit.
Yeah, but I think with this it got a bit long-winded and too many fart gags or whatever, that you sort of lost whereabouts I am in the plot.
Yeah, exactly.
What's happening
but there
next?
was no like, for me, the wasted opportunity of the fairy of Pantoland that was there.
Well, exactly. I don't know why she was there at all.
There didn't seem any reason, but they could have actually written more for her to actually be the narrator, to actually explain and bring you through the scenes in a fairy godmother way, and it just didn't have that. And
this is what I think my issue with this production is when it comes to the writing, because they've had two famous people, be Joe Pasquale and Faye Tozer, be those principal roles of Muddles and also Lucretia. With Muddles and Joe Pasquale, he takes over the role of Dame and also sort of pushes stuff along with the fairy.
Yeah.
So therefore you've got these extra characters that don't really bring anything, because Joe Pasquale is just out on stage and doing far too much. Like, the Dame comes on, yeah, it's brilliant costumes and stuff, but you don't really get that much comedy out of him because Joe Pasquale is overshadowing him and doing all that instead of just being the silly muddled guy that he is.
And as much as, I mean, one thing I'd like to talk about at the moment, I do feel that this was actually a rushed production, as in each half was about 45 minutes, as in rushed in the sense of they rushed the storyline.
Oh, I felt like I sat through it longer.
But yeah, it felt like that. But when you actually look at it as a piece, they spent more time on the Joe Pasquale jokes and things like that than the actual structure of the panto.
Yeah,
it was it was less about the panto and more about the bits in between where there's a comedian rather than the actual whole story. And that's what created a disconnect from it being a true panto.
And also, I'd add in there the fact that there was a disconnect a little bit with the audience participation. Because where they wanted it, it wasn't given. Because I think from the very beginning, it was like difficult to interact.
Yes, it was.
Because they sometimes they had no time for it, or they didn't jolly everybody up straight away. Like, we're going on this great big fun journey. It's Pantoland. Come on, let's get with it. And it just didn't.
And I think as well, they struggled to break the fourth wall. And the whole point of panto is to break down that fourth wall and rip it up. And interact with the audience. Remember, there's children in the room.
For that, I think there's two parts. There's the bit where interacting with the kids or whatever, and nudge towards the audience members.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's that. But also, I think when they broke a line, they laughed. But I think they just kept it on the stage to themselves.
Yeah, and they almost threw the chance away to expand that and bring the audience in more because they wasted opportunities a lot of the time.
Like Joe Pasquale, I think he did more so of that.
Yes, he did.
Everyone else felt serious.
He did.
He was more...
He was more on it and aware of that audience out there that he could react to, I think.
Yeah. What about the other characters?
I think for me, I mean, we saw Snow White was actually played by the understudy. So
that's true.
Initially, I don't know what had happened, but there was her entrances, her sound levels were a lot lower, and it was either a microphone
when she sang
issue,
Whistle While You Work.
But it was either a microphone issue or it was her projection, because there was times where I couldn't tell if it was the way she wasn't projecting enough for the microphones to pick her up. She was almost relying on the microphones to pick her up when she was talking and singing, and I think
it was down to the individual.
I think there was a bit of both. I think sometimes I don't know if she needed to be turned up.
I don't think she gave much welly when it came to singing her first song.
And I think it was last minute that she took the role on, which at that time, but she should have used it as a chance to shine.
She warmed into it and later.
Eventually, further down the line she did, but I just think at the start she seemed to sap some energy out of the production a little because she was probably taking time to get everything out.
Something that sapped the energy out of me whilst watching this was the actual roles of all of them. Now, whilst I've talked about like Muddles taking over the role of like Dame and the limelight out of them, you've also got the Prince William of West Bridgeford. Now, he's supposed to be like your Prince Charming and everything, but there was little interaction, and
it's quite lackluster, really, I felt.
Yeah, and how you're supposed to care for him, and like I think we said, he's supposed to come on like a bit of a swagger, like, I am the prince. And
I think they felt like there was no pomp and circumstance of his entrances, and it was not very prince-like. He didn't have an entourage. There was no pompous prince that you expect. It was very. It just felt like he's there. It just felt like he was there on stage at the point he needed to be.
Yeah.
And he turned up on time, but there wasn't actually a lot going off, and it felt like, is this actually the prince, or is this the prince in waiting, sort of waiting a long time? And I think that didn't help.
Well, there wasn't much about him.
There wasn't a lot of presence. It may be that he didn't have many lines because he didn't really say a lot, to be fair.
And it was near the end of the run.
Yeah, exactly.
But still,
and I do think, I know it was the end of the run, but I do think all of them fell into the trap of being quite flat in their performances a little.
Yeah. I actually wonder, they've rewritten the part of the storyline because Snow White's supposed to bite the apple and he's supposed to resurrect her, shall we say, by giving her a kiss. But they did it the other way around, so it kind of makes me wonder why, by making him take the apple and fallen asleep, then she had to be the hero to kiss him. It just made him and the male role sort of a bit weak.
Yeah.
Now, that's probably controversial in this day and age because it's all about empowering the woman. Why can't the woman kiss the man to wake him up? But that was his role. That's the reason why he's there, to save the day. And without him having that, albeit small, stereotypical role, he was pointless and useless. And there was no need for him as that. Otherwise, it's just like a caricature walk on part.
But also changing that, in turn, changed the entire premise of the story. The whole point of the Snow White story is the poison apple was to aim to kill Snow White so that then the evil queen became the fairest of them all.
Yeah.
But by the prince doing it, it left the queen's role pointless. It was like she was never going to gain that fairest of them all because the prince was now dead, and then she never attempted then to kill Snow White again. So we've just ended the storyline by doing that because the queen's never going to achieve what.
Yeah.
Whereas it normally ends with the queen getting what she wants, so she goes on that fact, and then all of a sudden you get the wake up and the kiss to wake Snow White up, which then breaks that spell again, and then she doesn't become the fairest of them all in the end. Whereas that had already been ended because the prince bit the apple. So it was like...
But I think that's why they changed the plot to
But it felt like
that.
such a weird change of plot. It didn't really...
Yeah, but the reason why, she wanted to kill Snow White so she could marry the prince and become his
But it
bride.
just felt like a weak change of,
but by him eating the apple and him being dead, it was like, well, that's that then. I don't need to kill her anymore. Well,
and it's
it.
over.
It's all
and it's
over,
like, It's like, it just felt like, oh, is this the shocking rewrite? Because it doesn't actually,
Yeah,
it's not as strong as the original in a way, you know.
Well, that's true, yeah, because... Well, I don't know where I was going with that one, to be fair.
If you mess too much, you can get lost in the way you've changed something.
You alter the dynamics of the original core principal cast and not the characters, rather. Because they all play a significant part.
And I think as a writer, you can convince yourself that, no, this is going to work, and this is right, this is fine. And you can believe it so much, and then there's no sitting back going, does it really make sense? Because
this whole thing didn't really make sense because even the fairy, who's like the narrator, the narration came down a lot in the writing given to Muddles or Queen Lucretia as well.
Definitely.
They were telling their plans, and it was very rare that the fairy came in to move the plot along or update it. I mean, she spoke in rhyming couplets, that's fine, and actually she did sing extremely well.
She was really good.
She was another one that was useless.
Yeah, as a character, it didn't add anything. You see, for me, when the prince bit the apple, if she'd have come out and said a different part that would have changed the story by announcing something at that point, something, profound or whatever that would have helped, but there was nothing. It was just like, oh, the prince has bit the apple. Oh, and I'd like to say I could make that better, but that's what it felt like. It was like, oh, the prince is lying on the floor and he's a bit the apple. And it was like the speed of that happening. The prince literally walked in, took the apple off the old lady, bit the apple, and he was on the floor. He didn't even interact really apart from that bit. It's like he did it and that was it.
Yeah, and there was no it's behind you. Those those typical panto things. There was no, it is, and yes, it is, and stuff like that.
They almost threw them away because there was
like, shall I eat this apple? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Shall I, boys and girls?
Yeah.
Shall I, everybody? It was none of that.
Well, there was a little bit of it, but it was only like the once, and but then it was as if. Oh, let's just move it on and I'll eat it anyway.
And it was like even Faye at one point really sort of wound me up a little bit because there was a bit where everybody started booing the evil queen, blah, blah, blah. And she almost said, I haven't got time for that. And like poo-pooed the idea of we need to do the boo scene where everybody boos them. Oh, no, I'm the evil queen. No, you're not. There was none of that. It just felt like, we'll just throw it away because we've got to move on. We've got 45 minutes for this half, 45 minutes for the second half. And you just feel like...
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And it's like, we've got to get through that, so we'll chuck away all the bits of a whole traditional, full-on, good belly laugh of a panto to get through the storyline, which was non-evident,
If we stay on any longer.
Yeah, that was
And that's,
evident.
again, that's like chucking away or shutting the door towards the audience, like, we don't want your participation.
It's like, we want you here, but we don't want you here.
We want your money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the other thing I'd want to say, writing-wise, is I do feel this panto was written with insert place name here, or insert local reference here, in the sense of you could take this panto anywhere, and there's not been a lot of cleverness of writing to actually include it as a piece of panto that's local and rips into local culture. There was no cleverness in it. It was just...
I think that stems down to the fact that this is a big production company that produces the same carbon copy in each district with certain celebrity people in there. And I think that's why they do it, whereas your homegrown ones from like Nottingham Playhouse or any kind of playhouse that they write their own, they can go to town a bit more.
And they take more care of it as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas this does feel a bit slapdash and...
Well, it feels like one of the ones where you can... There's plenty of websites out there where you can download panto scripts and pay a certain amount of money, and you can do this yourself. You can literally fill in the place names. You know, it's already there. There's stuff out there already. And this feels very much the same way, you know, and I think by having a comedian involved in the production and then getting them involved in writing, it's almost like the production company have just passed the script over and gone, just fill the bits in. And it's like, and that's what it feels like. It feels more manufactured than it does actually giving it the time to be a panto that is funny and people remember, because it took us a while to remember how this went, to be fair.
Well, it's just a production line, isn't it, with revolving doors. That's who's coming in. And,
yeah, because already they've announced next year's production with Shane Ritchie that's already on this year, already on somewhere else. Yeah, so Shane Ritchie's performing in Dick Whittington in another part of the country this year, and all they're doing is moving that production here. So my thoughts are they'll be doing a very similar thing to what we've seen today, where it's literally the same star who's already done it in another location and just plonking them into this location. And for me, I suppose this is something that I've realised from now I've been to see this one at Nottingham Theatre Royal. It's low risk for the theatre because the production company are responsible for providing the panto. So it's a no-brainer for a theatre owner because you just let them get on with it. I'd be interested to know how big the actual rehearsal time is and the time they've spent actually putting this together, because I do know Faye's done this role. I've been Evil Queen Lucretia before and she's done this production before, so I think it just feels like it needed waking up, and it was getting a bit, it was tired, you know. And
I must say, I want to give a shout out to Faye actually, because I thought she was brilliant.
She was
as Queen Lucretia. You know, she gave so much energy and evilness and her screeches and the way she just held the stage and her whole stage presence. You know, it's just brilliant. And all these little steps, references. You know, it was great.
Yeah, definitely.
And for the fact that she sang a few of the songs as well.
Yeah.
Really good. It was upbeat.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the production as a whole didn't feel like an ensemble piece. It felt more like individuals performing in a panto.
Yeah.
And that's what my experience of pantos. I've seen them from some of the greats, and I've seen some of the small pantos, big pantos, and the big stars. I've seen things from Danny LaRue to Biggins to Little and Large. I've seen the Crankies. I've seen everything. Those performers, and you know, Brian Connolly, that is seasoned panto performer, and I've seen Ken Dodd. I've seen all those performers that I've seen them work a panto to the point where they'll stop it. Everybody knows the lines. Everybody knows what's happening, but they'll stop it mid-production or big performance and just break it down or make the cast crack up or work with each other when they're all on stage stood there, knowing they've got to move the panto on, but they're all just having fun with it because they've all spent time on it to actually just have a laugh and just break each other. And, you know, where there'll be a dancer stood at the back. There was a little bit of that. We saw some of that with Joe Pasquale today in the panto, really.
He tried to get one of his backing singers, shall we say, to walk like a turkey or something.
It was do giblets. So
the giblets,
and stuff like that. Yeah. And break him by basically...
And break Faye as well.
Break Faye as well by basically stopping. So you saw... The thing is, we saw glimpses of what happens in a panto.
Yeah.
But I don't think it went far enough because they were almost like the clock was ticking.
Yeah, it never happened to the other people. It was as if like Joe and Faye could get like a free pass at doing that.
When they're on stage, they can do it.
Yes.
But we haven't got time for everybody else to do it.
I don't even think David Robbins, who did Mrs. Nellie Night Nurse, the Dame, I'm not quite sure if he managed to get away with
No,
it.
and I felt like
I can't remember
did-
now. He would have done.
He
Being the
had
Dane,
presence because of what he was wearing,
but I
he
think it
didn't
was
have-
overshadowed.
exactly.
With the actual the gags and the
Yeah.
loudness of stuff
Yeah.
by having Muddles.
Totally, yeah.
Because as if Muddles should have been like the buttons,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
nice little, school.
Yeah, he's
guy
he's
or whatever.
he's the Norman Wisdom, he's the silly man, he's the person that's like, he's the Charlie Chaplin, he's the person that's always a bit of a prat. But it's
Yeah.
like you've got to
He's
play
like a
up
good
to
guy,
that. It's-
yeah.
there's always a good intention, but he's a bit clumsy with it, and he's a bit this, and he's always the one that
But then again, I suppose if you're going to book Joe Pasquale, why have a Dame at all? Because they're just going to be under his shadow anyway.
Yeah.
You know.
Or you need a dame
who's
that's
gonna
at
be
the same
even bigger.
level
Yeah.
that can match that, because then your
yeah.
performance becomes a tennis match rather than a one-sided performance.
I think had the Dame, shall we say, been famous also,
Yes.
I think that would have probably evened things out a little bit in terms of that character.
Yes,
but then it
definitely.
still would have overshadowed the whole point of the prince and the fairy.
Yes, exactly.
Because
you
they
can't get
were,
away from that.
because
those.
I think the plot, as we said, fudged Prince William.
Yeah.
I hate him saying his name, but why would you call him Prince William? But anyway, fudged that character, and also the fairy didn't have that much to do in terms of the narrating. So
I mean, one thing I suppose the next thing I'd like to talk about is the scene in the wood. The evil queen hypnotised Muddles and the Dame to actually be zombies to go and kill Snow White in the woods.
Yeah.
And I'm talking quite flatly because I was very disappointed by this scene.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
The thing I liked about that particular scene was the fact that the Dame actually got changed. So she's
Yeah.
zombified, but she still ended up getting changed.
Walking off stage and coming back on with a different costume.
Yeah. Okay, so
That was funny.
That was a good
And
bit.
that was a quick, funny moment.
But I think that was the only.
That was
little-
probably about
yeah.
it. And then, obviously, Snow White walked into the forest, questionably, with two zombies.
What was she doing there?
They were going to kill her in the woods.
Yes, but why was she wandering around in
Why
the
would
woods?
she go with them
What's her
anyway?
modus operandi for being in the woods?
We're
in the
going for a
first place?
picnic.
Was she going for?
They went for a
in
picnic.
Night, at the
yeah,
night.
they went for a picnic in the Forbidden Woods, apparently. Okay.
Or was she going?
No,
to...
they said picnic. We're going for a picnic. They actually specifically said we're going for a picnic.
They were.
Yeah, she was as well with them.
She was.
Yeah, with them because that's what they were going to do.
So it wasn't a night scene.
Well, who knows? Because the way it was put, it was like it was a tab that was dropped in.
Has
That
she
was just a
found
few woods.
Has she been to the little dwarf's cottage yet?
No,
it's
we're
not-
not
this is
there
just
yet.
before-
It was
no,
before
okay.
that. Before that.
It's
So
all a blur
basically,
in my mind, you know. It's only been
we're
a week.
talking more than actually how long it happened on stage. To be fair, at the moment.
Dear me.
So the zombies took Snow White for a picnic in the wood, as you do.
As you do, yeah.
And Snow White announced to the audience, I think these two are zombies and they need to be woken up because they keep making me feel uncomfortable. And then they said, everybody needs to shout, wake up.
Yeah.
Everybody shouted, wake up once,
And then that was
and
it.
the zombies woke up.
Why didn't they try to chase her? Or why didn't she question it when they tried to, strangle her or something?
There was no
I know
moment
it's a
of
show for
walking
kids,
across
but-
stage, and every time she turned behind her, they were there, or they stopped, or there was none of those moments of
that
like,
would have been it's behind you.
it was
scene,
the
that could have
tiptoes
been.
of like tiptoeing away from them,
Yeah.
her turning around and them stop. It's a bit like chase
Yeah.
me, and it's like, oh, they can't quite hear you yet. You need to shout louder. There was none of those like making it last longer. So
Yeah.
the kids were jumping out of the chairs. I'll be honest, I didn't see any kids jump out of the chairs because they were already awake and there was no shouting, oh no, they're going to get you, they're going to get you. There was none of that.
Do you wonder because it wasn't exactly sold out? Do you think
No, I
that's
don't.
like-
There was a lot of kids in there, and I think it was not just that. We're on a time limit. We've got to do the scene.
Yeah.
Move on.
Paid
We
for
haven't
the
got
space till
time.
10 o'clock.
Move on.
1:30.
Then, so the zombies woke up. They didn't kill Snow White. Snow White then went off deeper into the woods to get away from them, and then she met. Oh, she went with Muddles.
She probably went into the woods just to get a bit of a hookup with someone.
Well, who knows? But she went with Muddles, and they found the house.
Conveniently.
Conveniently found the house. Very conveniently.
So they went cottaging.
They went cottaging in the house, and they fell asleep
So quickly.
so
as well.
quickly. It was all happening really quick. This was the dwarves stood at the front, did hi ho again, which we seem to be repeating a lot. They went into the house, found Snow White. Bless him. the actual dwarves, they turned up, but I did feel like they were just there for the aesthetics of the production. I didn't feel like they'd spent enough time to be part of it, and I was very disappointed, really, because I thought they could have done more.
Well, they never went upstairs.
No, they never used.
They
had this whole beautiful
set in my bed
of Snow White's the Seven Dwarfs house.
It looks nicer than my house.
And it was almost thrown away. It was like, well, we've done it now. We've done that scene.
Yeah.
They found Snow White in the bed. We'll leave the house now. I mean, Stephen's got a bit of a bugbear about the house. I know that, with the door and the entrances and stuff like that.
Oh, they creep around to go into the door.
To get into the house.
To get into the house, yeah, we can believe that. Then all of a sudden, it's off we got to go. And then they don't even go out of the door that they went into. They just went off stage.
And if you heard me talking about Neville's Island, this is exactly the same sort of time when we talk about leaving stage to leave an island.
Go back a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, I just think that, I mean, we're next moving on to another scene that I just found completely pointless, but this is I'm really going for...
is this the car one?
Yes, this is the car. So we leave the house because we're going to travel back to the kingdom, back to the castle.
Oh yeah, no, it was
after
it's night sky, isn't it?
Yeah, so we go to the
so the Forbidden Forest.
So we do the Forbidden Forest. We do the Snow White's house, the Forbidden Forest, is it?
Yeah, because we got Forbidden Forest, and then it's a cottage with the Magnificent
and back to
Seven,
the Forbidden Forest, yeah.
Which again, the cottage of the Magnificent Seven.
Yes.
And we were picking up Magnificent Seven what?
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't they say dwarves? Because you've actually got it advertised as dwarves, so you're not allowed to say dwarves.
It was really surreal. It was like, it felt like a strange. We've printed it on the poster. However, we've not mentioned it in the production.
And I think it's a bit like
it was confusing.
And it's when we say again underusing of the dwarves, right? But who was who? Who was sleepy? Who was bashful?
They gave them all different names. They didn't do those names because Disney. Even though we can sing Hi Ho.
Hi Ho.
Which is a Disney song.
Oh, wait, is Snow White actually a Disney thing, or is it actually a fairy tale?
It's a fairy tale. So Disney have capitalized. It was the first Disney film that was made as an animation.
I get that, but
it was previously, it was an actual... It's
and
based
were
on
any
a fairy
of the
tale.
dwarfs in the fairy tale?
No, so it'll be the names.
So they're okay. Well, whatever.
Yeah. So we go back to the Forbidden Forest, i.e. the tab comes back in. I know through a lot of pantos that I've seen, this is the scene where there's normally a big scene change behind that tabs because they've got to get the house off, they've got to move everything off and
get ready for Act 2 as well, I suppose.
What would normally happen at this point? They would normally do a scene where, a little bit like It's Behind You, where you'd have where if we're in the Forbidden Forest at night, there might be a ghost in the forest or something where it's
spooky.
What we're gonna do is, before we walk back, we're gonna sit on this bench and we're gonna sit there on this bench and just have a little sleep before we walk back because we're all tired, whatever. And then what we'd do is the cast would sit there. And they'd all talk to each other, they'd all fall asleep, and then a ghost would walk past. And then the kids would then be shouting, "It's behind you, there's something there," and then one of them would wake up, and then they'd follow that ghost around. They didn't really do that. We had a bit of a chat on stage with the Dame. Well, the Dame and Snow White had a bit of a chat, and then we announced that Muddles is going to drive his car home to the.
See, that's another part of the plot. Where were they going?
They were going back to the kingdom, back to the castle. They're going from the Forbidden Forest back to the castle.
So they walked from the castle into the forest, and then all of a sudden...
Because Snow White was going to stay there, but she was going to wave them off.
Yeah. They've gone cottaging.
Yeah.
Walking there.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, there's this random car that's his, that he's left.
But he doesn't take everybody in the car.
Selfish.
Just himself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it's Joe Pasquale. He's got to have the.
But he's got a red sports car. I didn't even think they had red sports cars in Pantoland.
I think you've answered yourself there. It's Pantoland. They can probably have anything. If they can have singing snakes and rabbits and monkeys and all this kind of nonsense.
But it didn't. I think when there's no reference to it at all throughout the whole.
And what
show,
I said, and which we haven't actually said, Joe Pasquale's entrance. He came in with an automated toilet. And he went around.
Toilet on wheels. His own throne.
Like a mobility.
He got his own throne.
Yeah, like a mobility scooter. That's basically a toilet. So his own throne. Why didn't he have a bigger one of those with headlights on?
That flew.
that flew, that he actually was sitting in the toilet
Because that
driving.
wasn't available at the warehouse that they were using it. They'd all got a car ready.
See, if you made it yourself, it would have made sense. You know?
But that's where the attention paid to. We've got this effect available.
Yeah.
We need to use it somewhere in the country.
Yeah.
We've got 20 productions on, so let's use it at Nottingham because they haven't got many performers in it. So let's just chuck this flying car in it, and that's what it felt like.
That was just bizarre.
It was.
I think they've probably just taken bits out of Back to the Future. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's a car that does this. Oh, we know we can get you this on the cheap. This is like the prototype.
Well, I'll be covering in a forthcoming production. In a forthcoming podcast. I'm going to be covering Back to the Future because I've seen it, and I'll tell you now, it was a very similar point in the production to actually have the car scene happen and on stage in a similar way. Done a hell of a lot better and 100 times better, but that was the same principle at the same point.
But again, it sort of didn't need that.
No, it was wasted. We were wasting time on that rather than working with the audience. Yeah. And that's the thing. It was just had a bit of we're flying above the audience and we're in a car and I'm waving. But
they should have actually scrapped that. And let's had some detail about the Prince William. What is he up to? Do you know what I mean? What's his wants and needs?
Yeah.
Where is he right now?
Where's he from?
Is he sitting on his throne pining for Snow White? Where's his backstory?
We didn't see him playing on his PS4 while he was back at home, you know.
Exactly, ordering a KFC family bucket.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Was that Kingdom for Chicken?
Probably.
Yeah, could be, couldn't it?
Yeah, or the panto there.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
I don't know. Anyway.
My kingdom for a chicken.
Yeah, let's not kick the bucket. Right, moving on.
To the second half.
to the second half, exactly. Yeah. And we're back in the Prince's Forest camp. Oh, do you know what? I can't remember any of this, but what I would say...
We've almost covered some of it because we've talked about the apple.
I think there was an ending of Act 1 where... Did Faye sing some step song, or was that...
No, it was the car. That was it.
Oh, was it?
So that's the night sky.
Because Faye she did sing a step song, but then she sang another one when it was in her laboratory because she was singing one of her latest singles.
Scared of the Dark.
That's the one, Scared of the Dark. Yeah. I thought that she did another one.
It was a rewritten version of Scared of the Dark.
I mean, all that was great, to be honest. It felt like everything was being wrapped up pretty quickly. But again, it all seemed to be a lot of fart jokes and a lot of Joe Pasquale arsing about a bit too much, where you could have actually enticed the audience, well, particularly the kids, to get involved. One of the great scenes I particularly enjoyed about this, and I think it was in the second half, possibly, is when they were talking about, again, I think it was toilet humour and being a bit windy.
Yes.
They sang a lot of... They had music clips of songs which referenced any like toilet gags or fart gags or stuff like that.
Yeah, it was all the Let It Go. It was it was all wind related things.
Pretty much, And also, I think they replayed it as well when they were talking about hello. Is it me you're looking for? And all that, like the introduction.
It was almost adding to the dialogue of. I've seen that done with other things where almost very drag performance where they're picking a phone up and somebody else is speaking and then somebody else is speaking very put together, you know.
And just as a retort or replying to someone, it would be like a musical lyric or a musical song.
Yeah, a recognisable one as well.
So I mean that was quite fun. In terms of the costume, I thought they were all pretty much well done and made and whatever. I thought Faye's, I was going to go there, but I thought Faye's was probably the best one.
He was, yeah.
You know, that was the nicest looking one.
It was the most opulent, I suppose, you know, in design.
Yeah, and the Dame Mrs. Nellie Night Nurse, she had some really good, fun costumes coming out all the time.
Yeah, she did.
And I think he makes some of them himself, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Yeah, but I think what you were going to go on to is what I was going to leave to last is just Joe Pasquale's costume was
I don't know whose decision it was, but I just felt that the traditional costume of the silly, funny man, the jester almost, I just felt like they'd give him a costume that had been kicked around the floor a bit.
Yeah.
It felt like it felt faded and a bit like, this was what was
that
left.
reminds me of a scene in the first act.
Oh yeah,
they bring out the
trunk of
truth. And whenever they were talking or singing, I can't remember what it was.
This was an attempt to do a silly scene, a bit like the slapstick scenes with the wallpaper where you're climbing up the stairs, the custard pie scenes. It was one of those type of silly scenes
Yeah.
that's meant to make the audience enjoy it and laugh, and it made no sense.
No, because what it ended up doing was just ripping the clothes off Joe Pasquale one by one straight
Yeah,
into
it
the
was
trunk. And I don't understand why they did that. Until
Yeah,
it
he
was
was
all
wearing
like
a nude
just
bodysuit underneath, sort of thing, and it was every time something was sung, he lost an item of clothing, which, you know, you could probably say it was clever. However,
It wasn't
the
clever.
trunk
it was
of
crass.
truth made no sense.
Truth about what?
Because there was no build-up, and this is where the writing came in. We were like, why is the trunk of truth here?
It's just a scene
What
for
is
the
it
sake
giving
of...
away, and what does it change the story? Because it didn't.
I don't
It
know what
didn't
again it was
change
for.
anything. You know, it wasn't like Pinocchio when his nose gets bigger. He was giving away lies that then changed the story. He was lying and it changed the story.
Yeah, it wasn't even a scene for
nothing.
a reaction of
No.
what was going on in the plot.
It made no sense because in a way it was probably done too early because it was actually right close to the start of the production. It wasn't like in the second half where it could have been. It was just almost why? What were we doing it for?
Yeah, no, I don't have a clue on that one. Oh, there was a bit with the stall.
I'll be honest, I wasn't as impressed as Stephen was. Stephen's never seen this actual act happen, really.
No, well, I know the gag,
Yeah.
but I wasn't expecting it. That's what got me.
Yeah,
'Cause
okay.
like, oh, right, okay, it happened. Otherwise, it was like, I didn't understand why just one random stool came out and then he just sat there.
Yeah, again, it was like the car scene. You know, for me, if they'd have written it better, they could have said, he's getting ready for the final, for the wedding. So he's going to sit at do his makeup. They could have even made it silly and had a makeup desk with that chair, that stool there to do something.
Yes, it was
you
a
know,
bit forced,
It was just
shoehorned in.
the chair in the middle of the room with nothing else around it, and it just like Or they could have had 3 stools made that matched, and one of them did that, and the other 2 didn't. And then the Dame and Snow White could have been
sat
involved,
down,
and it was only him that got it. And it was there. That was the level. It just felt like I'll do this gag because it's funny, rather than it feeling like it's part of the whole.
And I think this is the trouble with this pantomime. It's very difficult to pin down what was right about it.
Yeah.
Certain people have found it hilarious and great, but because we're sort of more refined at picking out problems and issues and seeing stuff, it's quite grating. But then there were some good elements in it which I did find entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. I just think it just felt lazy as a whole piece, and I think when I've probably been not scarred, but I think I've probably seen a lot of productions.
Maybe
over
you're scarred
my
now.
time. Yeah, maybe.
You're scarred you now. It's that car.
But I think that doing a panto is an art form. Doing comedy productions, doing anything farcical on stage is a fine line and a fine art where you have to perform and you have to make it funny and don't patronise the audience. You know, there's ways to do 2 different levels of comedy. You can be slapstick and silly, and then you can also say a line that the kids don't understand's funny, but the audience, the adults are pissing themselves.
But the kids will laugh because the adults are laughing.
Yeah,
Because they don't want to feel like they don't
But
get
it
the
doesn't.
joke.
It's never crude and it's never rude. It's points fingers at rudeness or silliness or funny, but they don't have to say it because the audience fill the gaps in, and I think it's almost like doing a watered down, sanitized version of a panto that. You know, I've seen things where you've got famous people on stage where, you know, Brian Connolly used to have a TV series where he used to do, this is just an example of what I'm used to, where they've integrated a performer who had a long-standing TV show where he had a character called Dangerous Brian that used to save the day, but it was always fake. He always used to trip over things, or he used to break things, or he used to like cause mayhem. But they'd do things where they wouldn't tell you he was ever going to be on stage because you thought it was just going to be Brian Connolly on stage as Buttons or as this or as that as the other. And they'd go, I know, I'll go and get somebody to help to solve this problem on stage. And he'd come back out as Dangerous Brian. They'd have a whole set up to be a stupid scene that was to basically probably, I don't know, get the glass slipper to Cinderella. But it'd be him causing mayhem on stage, and then he'd go off stage the other side and come back out as Buttons. And they didn't they did it, but it was integrated in a way that felt like it was part of it. Unlike just bringing a stool out and spinning around it and it having a gag, it was whole. They made an effort to fully integrate something, and I think that's where this just felt lazy. It felt
there wasn't much slapstick, was there?
No,
no scene.
They wasted. That's the whole point of this. You've got to. The physical comedy is just as important as what's written. And I just felt like,
It did feel too much like a Jay Pasquale stand-up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is just typical of these kind of mass manufactured or produced productions. Do you know what I mean? Like, it sort of loses the spark.
Well, it ticks a box. It's a panto. It's on every year, and it's like, And I do feel a little disappointed because the year following COVID and all the venues that have been shut, and the final time, the best time for people to want a lift and want to see a show that's really good and enjoy it. And I feel like they've almost wasted an opportunity to create theatre when they've got less restrictions to worry about and they can actually do a show and perform it. And I just feel that this was, it was just wasted a little bit.
However, some people found it entertaining.
Yeah,
totally. And, maybe you saw it and you enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely.
I enjoyed it. I'd say I enjoyed it, but one thing that really aggravated me, seeing the mirror come out at the very start was fun. Seeing it again, thought, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But then 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, till the very end, I thought, oh, just turn it off now. I'm done with it.
I know.
And we saw it when there was a sign language interpreter. And with this mirror being fully erected and out there on show, you couldn't see her if you was on the left side of the auditorium. And also, you couldn't see anybody who was performing on that side of the stage.
No, completely blocked.
Because of this damn mirror. Had it been at the back, then that would have been worked fine because you're sort of out the way, you can actually see it. But the thing is, nothing came up from the stage, from beneath. And nothing necessarily came on and clogged the space anyway. So it still could have happened and come up.
No, but also from a directorial point of view, I felt that nobody thought that if Faye stands next to the mirror stage left that time, why can't she stand stage right the next time and alternate? So at least 50% of the performance you see Faye next to a mirror wherever you sit. I know we may have been on the side of the stalls to actually watch this, but we would have only needed to be in a little bit more and we still would have had a restriction. It wasn't just where we were sat.
Yeah, our seats weren't restricted seats, so we need money back for that.
It
really.
was just, but I think also what I'd like to say is when that mirror appeared, the way its hydraulics were built, it came up, it rotated, and we had to wait for it to rotate fully around one revolution while the smoke machine was going. And it got to the point where you're like, I'm waiting now, and I'm waiting.
Yeah, get on with it.
And I'm waiting. And it just felt, oh, it's coming up again. It's like, it didn't feel like, oh, it's exciting. It just felt, to be honest, it didn't need to revolve because for me, if it had just shot up out of the floor, it would have been enough. Yeah. It's impressive enough to just appear and it doesn't need to do all that pomp every time anyway.
It would have been quicker to load up a Commodore 64 game.
Yeah, it would. I mean, one of my comments that I'd say is I wouldn't say it was that exciting, the actual choice of avatar, shall we say, that they used. They used a Gollum-looking goblin to be the face of the mirror, which looked like something out of Lord of the Rings or
it was an Alton
Game of
Towers
Thrones.
Reject.
Yeah, it was an Alton Towers reject.
Park.
But also, when it was speaking, so that it didn't seem to be catching up with the words, it would have been better off to use a face of somebody to say those words rather than it being this weird computer-generated, was actually quite a scary vision, where when you imagine a mirror, it didn't feel like the face was in the mirror or in glass. It just felt like a computer-generated image on top of a video file. It didn't feel like it was pushed through the mirror. When the evil Queen Lucretia got trapped in the mirror, we saw a real person get trapped in the mirror, and she was trapped in the mirror. So it was really weird when they could do it for Faye, but why couldn't they have done it for somebody
because
else?
one's a 2D image and one's a 3D thing. And had they had made the 2D image more 3D, and it's all down to the lighting.
It just
as well,
didn't feel blended, did it?
When we was in there, when they used the stage lighting of pink and blue, I said to you when we sat down, everything felt like 3D or double exposed. And that's just me.
It was playing with your eyes.
Well, that's not me looking at the stage. That's me actually looking at the audience members, because it just made everything look a bit weird and 3D, and I was in some sort of like virtual reality thing.
Yeah, whereas it didn't come across in that way. I think it was another effect that with stuff like this, you've in a way for pantos, in my view, you've got a freedom to use a lot of effects and as many effects as you want, because you know that's the whole point. It's amazing to do that.
Yeah, they did a night scene and they did a dance, didn't they? It was just after the laboratory when we're talking about the scared of the dark thing.
Yeah.
And they had the fluorescent
tubing piping that goes on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they ended up doing it a little bit, and then the rest of the dance seemed to be in normal lighting. Well, it would have been better had they have just kept that whole thing dark.
Yeah, totally.
Because it just made everything just look stupid when the lights came back on again. Because you could actually see the people with the fluorescent tubings on. Or costumes
and also, I mean, I say you can throw anything at it, but you've still got to make it make sense. And you can.
You think that would be an easy thing?
You would when you've almost got. You can use all the things you wouldn't use in traditional theatre, where you have to restrict yourself. Whereas this, you can go a bit mad, and even then, I find some people make weird decisions, and it's just like, you've got. I just think that I know we've moved on to technical bits now, but it's just.
I think this is going to have to be one great big blob for this one.
I think there's only one way you can do this. I think this is just a way that with theatre you've just got to. You've got to know when to rein it in, and you've got to know when to work with these things. Like when the mirror was introducing itself every time, I felt like the cast were almost standing there tapping their watches, like waiting to see, it's coming, it'll be there in a minute, it's going to say its bit.
It's their toilet break. They can go
and felt like,
go out for a fag.
But the ones that were standing at the front were like standing on stage were almost like, it's coming, wait for it.
Not just yet.
Yeah, it was just yet. I think that those moments that I think it just added to the whole production.
Because the pyrotechnics, like the fireworks stuff that went out at the very beginning, that was to get your attention, and it's like, something magical's happening.
Yeah.
But they never used the pyrotechnics for the others, did they? So it came back out. But one of the technical things they did have was the ice machine. Yeah. And in one, a couple of scenes, I think it was a musical scenes, where the ice... the fog just came all the way over the front of the audience, where they started choking. Yeah. They were like proper gagging, and they couldn't see what was going on.
Flooded the audience with it.
Yeah.
I
don't know if they had a bit too much going on there, or released too much, but it was certainly engulfed.
I just think it had all the scenes of it. It had all the scenes of the panto. It ticked those boxes in a bit of a weird order, but. You got your traditional wedding at the end, but it all just felt like, okay.
It felt like we were watching a play where it kept buffering.
Yeah.
Certain scenes hadn't been finished, and then some bits were.
But you got a glimpse of them. You got to see them, so you knew that was the next scene.
Certain scenes or bits were missing.
And then we've got the wedding, and we're singing the Steps medley, which Faye's great at that. She's a brilliant performer, but. I've seen her in Singing in the Rain. I've seen her in Tell Me on a Sunday. I've seen her do real, solid theatre performances. So it's not the first time I've seen Faye do theatre, so it didn't surprise me that she was good at what she did. I just think as an ensemble cast, they needed to work on a lot more of them and their time together to actually make it a coherent panto and a coherent piece of theatre, really.
I do wonder if... because obviously pantos go on a fair bit, don't they? If the other characters the actors felt like I can't really excel in this character because it's lacking material.
Yeah.
Especially when you
exactly.
do have
I
overshadowing characters.
I just felt like they were going through the motions a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing I'd probably say is I would like to question how much rehearsal time they had and how much direction they had. Because it feels to me like it was directed and rehearsed quick and they had to learn while they were doing it.
Yeah.
It was almost like, well, you almost know your lines, so just get on with it and do it and tick the box.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was... Are they given any notes per production, or does the director pop in to mould the other productions that are happening across the country? Are they just ticking it over, making sure that each one's happy, leaving them to self-direct a little bit because they're all good performers and they've done it before, without reining it in and tightening it up?
Yeah.
You don't know. For me, it just felt like, has enough attention been spent prior to the actual performance, or are they just learning as they go along, And I think that might have...
Bugger only knows.
Who knows? Who knows? But I think that's something that you could probably question, that
if you wanted to go
that deep, where I think with the one scene that I found that actually lifted the energy of the cast and saw them all work together was the scene just before the wedding, which was at the wrong place because it actually came right at the end of the production.
That was a slapstick medley,
we saw a slapstick medley where everybody had a different job. They sang a song.
What would I do if I went in Panto? I'd be a police officer,
or I'd be a cook, or I'd be this, or I'd be that, and they all had different actions. And as they did actions, everybody missed each other, but they were all very close to each other. It was a standard Panto routine I've seen before, and
whilst
it's very clever.
Joe Pasquale, the models.
And then it actually breaks down where actually they end up hitting Joe Pasquale and he gets in the wrong place, and it's all a bit of a slapstick funny, every time something moves. But it was right before the wedding, so they could get the scene ready for the wedding scene, so they were in front of the tabs. But that was the only point I saw the four members of the cast, the Dame, the Prince, Joe Pasquale and Faye, all enjoy it and have fun and show that they were all enjoying a team performance. And it felt finally like what we've wanted all the way through the production.
Even though I loved it, the whole slapstick of it, it still lacked the fairy again.
It did,
Why wasn't she involved? Why wasn't Snow White involved?
Exactly.
I
mean, a baby could have understood Snow White not being involved if she's the understudy that hasn't only stepped in last minute.
She would have
understudied. She would have understood
the understudy role of understanding the performance.
No, fair point. Yeah, fair point.
Thank you. I do try and make them. So there's two characters there which could have been involved there, and they decided not to.
No, but I can't see how, if the prince has got to get into the wedding costume, how the Snow White couldn't have got into her costume in the same amount of time.
And the Dame as well.
And the Dame the same. They still had to make massive costume changes, so they weren't in the point where they all had to get off and get changed.
And in that respect, if they'd have all been involved, for them to then do a costume change, you could have brought in the Seven Dwarfs to do a little stint something. To cover their
just not
time.
Hi-Ho.
Just not that one again. Bye-ho.
Bye-ho. Exactly.
It's off to the wedding you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just a wrong place of the scene. If that had been in the first half early on instead of the stupid truth trunk, we might have had a different performance from them all, because we'd have had a more positive, enjoyable performance from all of them, because their energy would have been up, because they'd lifted their own energies up as a team, and that's what would have helped.
Yeah, I agree there. Right then, let's just move on now to our final segment where we say, call this a show. Now, I suppose we're going to have to rate this and give our little review or review rewind, I shall say. So let's start off with, which bit of this panto would you see again if you were willing to pay to see it?
It's going to only have to be the If I Weren't in Panto Land scene, because that was the only bit that actually felt full of energy.
I'd definitely see that scene again. That's, as soon as I saw it, I thought, more. But I actually felt the songs that Faye performed.
Yeah,
quite
no, true. I
uplifting
mean,
as
yeah,
well,
I'd do that. I mean, I think the laboratory scene was good as well, but
Yeah.
you know, I think yeah.
I don't think it was all that bad, but yeah, no, I definitely would see that one again. Scores then, please, Richard, for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being fairest in the land and 1 being a bite of the poisoned apple. What's it going to be?
Well, I'm going to say a 5 out of 10.
Ooh, I can't believe you. Really? A 5? Okay.
I'm going for 5 out of 10 because
Middle
I
of the
have
road
got
there.
quite a high standard when it comes to pantos.
Oh,
And-
really? Oh, no, you haven't.
Oh, yes, I have.
Oh, no, you haven't.
Oh, yes, I
I
have.
had to slip that in because we went without.
I
one,
haven't.
see.
I haven't.
Oh, you have. Have you really?
Yes,
Okay.
I have.
Go on then.
Yeah, that's it. I've done it. 5 out
Oh,
of
I
10.
thought you were going to bang on more about it.
No, I don't want to really because I suppose
You've done
I've
enough.
done enough. Yeah.
Okay, I'd probably say this is a 7.5 for me.
Wow.
Not brilliant. Oh. All right.
No, you're allowed to. You're allowed to your own
thank you.
opinion.
I'm glad. I'm glad you think I can have an opinion and it's valid. I think a 7.5 because I actually did enjoy. I'd say what 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
I thought there was definitely stuff you could work with.
Yeah. There was a few
It
good
was value.
jokes. you
Yeah,
know.
no, it was all right. It was good. I enjoyed. I enjoyed it and stuff. So yeah. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck, tumbleweed, an audible shrug of the shoulders, a slow clap, a pleasant applause, or a standing ovation. What will it be?
Tumbleweed. I am being harsh today, but yeah, tumbleweed.
Only the biggest, baddest tumbleweed in all the land.
It's lost in the Forbidden Forest.
I bet it is. I'll give it a pleasant applause.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Coming up over the next few episodes, we will be discussing our second Pantomime special episode, Dick Whittington,
Rebus, a game called Malice.
and the Beekeeper of Aleppo.
That's it for this week, folks.
If you'd like to drop us a message, please email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. Remember, you can always join in the chat to share with us your views on a production.
Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.
Dwarves. Is this like a mental hospital?
Yeah.
Snow White and the 7D wards?
The awards. Yeah. Yeah. All the other awards are full.
Oh, yeah.
The D award.
We've got 7D wards because they've run out.
Yeah.